Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to look at how the tight contest for the French presidency also highlights some of the issues we've had in UK politics in recent years. Possibly forever, but they've certainly become more acute in the past few years. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So it's all getting a bit squeaky bum time. This is potentially quite foolish because at the time of recording this, we've not actually seen the results of the first runoff for the French presidential elections, but it seems to be overwhelmingly the case that what we're doing is setting ourselves up for a second round in a couple of weeks between Macron and Le Pen. So I'm going to say that's what's happened. If it hasn't, I'm just going to look stupid. But yet again, the French people, that's assuming that's what's happening, have got a choice between a far-right nutter and someone else. The someone else this time is a centrist who has already been in post. Now, sometimes it's someone on the left and sometimes it's someone on the right. But why does it always have to be a runoff with someone on the far right? I'm sure very clever people who are good at thinking and stroking their chins will have deep and meaningful answers, but I'm just going to wax lyrical on how I see a few things. See, my own fear is that we're seeing a carefully coordinated rise of populism around the world. You know, because we're seeing it in so many countries. It's not like this is caused by this one thing, because then it would be contained where that one thing was happening. It seems to be everywhere. I've said in the past, when you looked at the people involved in both Brexit and the election of Trump in 2016, you went, there's a lot of crossover here. There's a lot of people that were involved in both. What's going on? A lot of international players involved in both campaigns, and we also know that quite a lot of them are also involving themselves in other countries in Europe as well. Steve Bannon has attempted to spread his tentacles into other EU countries after he caused the UK to fall and the US to suffer serious damage. You know, and although Brexit ironically forced the far right in Europe to scale back their anti-EU rhetoric a bit, the clever ones did not lose much popularity. They just adapted their rhetoric for the new reality. Make no mistake, though, they're the same people with the same ideology. They'll come to the same political conclusions. And that ideology is not in the interests of the common good. It never is. And it never has been in history. Never. Like Farage and Johnson in the UK and Trump in the US, Le Pen pretends to be on the side of the people. But in reality is a grifter with a warped hatred of her common man. But she can't possibly win, can she? I mean, moderates in France will surely vote for Macron. And the left can't possibly want Le Pen as their president, even though they'll not be impressed with Macron either. But herein lies the problem, and it's a problem that has blighted UK politics as well. See, for all the talk of how archaic the UK electoral system is, and how the rest of Europe, Belarus aside, has a much more modern take on things, there are still the same issues here and there. The French presidency is one of them. The fundamental problem with first past the post is that you get a false choice. In the UK, for example, you will often see half a dozen candidates or more on a ballot for a general election. In reality, it doesn't matter how many candidates there are. You have a choice of two. Now, I'm not going to swear that there is no constituency in the UK where there isn't a three-way race sometimes, because if I did, someone will point it out to me. But I am going to say in at least 99% of seats, I'm going to confidently say it is a choice of two candidates. And if you do not like either of the candidates or the parties and the policies they represent, then you are left to choose the lesser of the two evils. But that is not how most people think. They will either vote for their preferred choice, even if it means helping their worst choice, or they will not vote at all and blame the better candidate for not appealing to them personally. The end result is, because many people will refuse to vote for the clearly better candidate, they risk getting the worst. If Le Pen wins on April the 24th, it won't really be because France has lost its mind and bought into the xenophobic fears that her party pushes, you know, much like with Brexit in the UK. It will be because reasonable people sulked because they didn't feel represented by either choice. We see it all the time in the UK, and it's the main fear ahead of the next general election as well. It's also more likely to happen in the UK because, again, this first past the post giving the illusion of choice. Like, come the second round in France, Voters are clearly going to have two choices. There's no illusion there. They know that. It's two choices. There's no mirage of candidates to vote for in the second round as there was in the first. As the date of the election draws near, they will know with certainty the winner will either be Macron or Le Pen. If they don't vote at all, they know that they're basically helping Le Pen. In the UK, it's actually worse, because there's no like first round where you throw your votes away on no hopers just for a laugh. Then you go to a second round between the two serious candidates. The illusion of choice is maintained. I remember a few years ago when it was Jean-Marie Le Pen, wasn't it, who looked close. Again, this was against Chirac all those years ago. And obviously the left in France would never want someone like Chirac in office again. Oh, you can't vote for him a second term. It would feel terrible to do that. But the slogans from some on the left were, vote for the crook, not the Nazi. In other words, you know, we have to actually say, yeah, we don't like Chirac, but do you know what? There is worse. And that worse is on offer. And the crook won. It was a relief that a man like Chirac won. That's how bad politics can be sometimes. But here's the thing. If you don't face up to that, if you idealise politics and what it might be, you stick your head in the sand, you delude yourself, you blame those, well, you know, this better candidate should be more like this, or they should adopt this policy or that policy. I don't like the fact they're not talking about this. Then you will get a whole lot worse. In the UK, as far as millions of people were concerned in 2019, they were offered two bad choices. The hope is that they don't feel this way come the next election, that they feel, say, Labour offers, even if not a choice that really inspires them, because I really don't think that's on the cards, at least one that ends the nightmare of Conservative pain. That is my best hope, because I think back to Ed Miliband. He lost the election for Labour in 2015. At the time, the Conservatives were delivering huge economic pain to the country through their austerity programme. But the Conservatives were still blaming it on the previous Labour government. Oh, we're only hurting you because of Labour. It was their fault. Sorry, we have to do this, but it's quite necessary. You know, they still do this now years later. But it will fool fewer and fewer people as time goes on. In 2015, some people thought, well, you know, I suppose, if they accept that Labour made a mess of it, which was not true, but never mind. But if you have that in your head, you might think, well, you know, maybe 5 years isn't quite enough. And they do say it's nearly there. They talk about these green shoots of recovery. So in a couple more years, it'll probably be fine. And then it wasn't. And then it still isn't. And it won't be in 2024. But as time goes on, fewer and fewer people are fooled. I mean, how daft would you have to be come a likely 2024 election to believe that the problems are actually the fault of the party that hasn't been in power for over 14 years? I don't think Starmer will be a better campaigner than Miliband. He may not even be as good. You know, Miliband was just a leader too soon after Labour's defeat, and he wasn't a great campaigner himself. If he were, he probably would have won, but he wasn't. The main asset we've got in the UK now is that the Conservatives have been in power for a long time, 12 years now, and it will be 14 before there's an election, and we are still to see any benefits. And we won't see any benefits. Life actually just gets worse. France has a bit of a problem in this regard. It doesn't have that asset. That works against it because Macron is the incumbent. He's not going to attract support from people who just want the current government going, oh, we gave him a chance and it all went to shit, so we'll give the new person a chance. Because the problem is that Macron is the current government. Le Pen can't be blamed for any government policies that voters feel are not in their interest. She's also promising to form a diverse government of national unity. Be bollocks, of course. But in opposition, populists are especially dangerous because they can promise all the wonderful things and people are more likely to believe them. It's much harder to counter. Like, when populists promise shiny things in government, as they have been doing in this country for a while, you can try and point out, yeah, but look at what they've actually delivered. And people may still say, yeah, I know, but they say it takes time. Whereas in opposition, you can't even say, well, look at what they've delivered, because they've delivered nothing. They haven't had the chance. So some will go, I'll give them a go. You know, that's what they'll say, give them a go. Could it really be worse than what we've got now? We had people say that about the Tories in 2010. Austerity killed tens of thousands of people and plunged millions more into poverty. People said it in the 2016 Brexit referendum. We've had a lot more killed since and a lot more plunged into poverty. For those who say it in France over the next couple of weeks, the outcome will not be any better in France than it was in the UK. In fact, my greatest fear come election time is people thinking, let's give them a go, it couldn't actually be any worse, could it? The only time it can't actually be any worse is when you've already got the worst in power. But I have seen the attitude in the UK, and although there are significant cultural differences between Britain and France, you know, people are people. You know, I mean, like one of the big differences I've talked about with Brexit, like some of the things the UK government do, you won't get away with it in France. The people would rise up. That revolutionary, history, which means that they don't take any shit from the government. But sometimes I think that can make them more susceptible to making good the enemy of the great. You look at the government and you go, if you were to look at it in passion, you go, well, is Macron better than Le Pen? Yes. So should we vote for Macron? Well, I don't know. He could be better, you know, and he should be better. Things should be better now. There's no reason for him to have done that or not to have done this. So no, why should I give him my vote? That can be the attitude. You know, but people are people. Voter apathy is not the consequences of decent politicians trying to piss off the electorate. It's the tool of the extreme right wing. You know, they know that their support will go out and vote. They know that. The extreme right wing are really, really good at firing up their support base and making them think that every election is an existential crisis. So they'll all go out. They've got wealthy backers, much of the media normalising their nonsense. Their support will turn up and vote. But they also know that their support are nowhere near a majority of the electorate. Nowhere near. They can't win based on that alone. So to win, they absolutely depend on lots and lots of moderate people not turning out to vote at all. So they need to stop the majority rallying around their opponent as the better of the two options. In Britain, this is achieved much more easily because, again, we have that illusion of choice going on. In France, with the presidential election, it will be because people refuse to vote for Macron because he wasn't good enough first time round. And obviously no one's going to suggest he'll suddenly change and be better in the second term. Yeah, he may be more experienced, but fundamentally his politics are his politics. And if you don't like them, he's not going to change his. But I do wonder how many who stay away consciously think, do they entertain the thought that if Le Pen wins, as they decide not to go, do they think to themselves, if Le Pen wins, it's because I couldn't hold my nose to vote for the only candidate who didn't want to destroy the country? Because that's how I often see these things. Like, that's how I often view these binary choices, because most of them are binary when you don't have proportion. Obviously, you can't have proportional representative French presidency. I understand that is a binary choice. That's how it has to be. But it can often be between the candidate who wants to destroy your country deliberately and the one who might do it accidentally. It's an awful choice, but I am pragmatic. I will always vote for the one who might do it accidentally. I will vote for someone who might accidentally damage my country, because it still gives you your best chance. It's two poor options, but it's still your best chance. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.